for many, many years, I have said on this program that I think YouTube is problematic. Like what we do here, largely speaking, I think is at its essence somewhat problematic. We're problematic, just period. We try and do this show in a responsible manner and try and be as transparent as we can, and try and pursue things that are sincere, and also avoid, to the extent that we can, and I know some of our YouTube titles we use all caps and can be flamboyant, but in terms of like the topics that we cover and the stories that we do, I mean, I just have to go to great lengths, but we do not attempt to shape the show based upon the clicks that we're going to get. Used to be like, back when, I started radio, you'd look at the news programs, you'd say they're just chasing the audience. YouTube is that much more problematic, because in cable news, they're looking at the 15 minutes of Nielsen ratings that they get for any sort of segment. In YouTube, it's like click per click per click. And you can just look at like the, you can easily track. You want to know what the definition of a grifter is? Look at the topics that they start to cover and then combine that with Google Trends and know that they are chasing this stuff and they don't care what it is. You don't go out there and push ivermectin and hydrochlorocloxacin or whatever the hell it is because you all of a sudden have been like, I just, I became
alternative medicine guy.
An alternative medicine guy all of a sudden. Or, like I have been for years secretly concerned about the injustice of Ukraine and their refusal to accept their Russian heritage, and that I have suddenly become so concerned about Division 3A field hockey and the integrity of women's sports, or I'm concerned about a supposed rape that took place in a women's prison facility, because there's never been any other rapes in there that otherwise I would have been covering it. Like, you could just watch. And this attitude is also problematic. Here is Greg Gutfeld talking about comments that Joe Rogan apparently made yesterday or the day before that I think you guys covered yesterday, where, the left didn't have my back. When it was about COVID and the other conservatives, COVID or other controversies, but the right did, and that's what I'm.
He says Fox News specifically. He said Fox specifically.
Fox News. And listen, the idea that this would shape your political ideology is indicative not of what your political ideology is, other than it is to make money or be popular or have a celebrity. And that is what is highly problematic about, the ability of one person or three people to get a microphone and start doing whatever, because there's no other checks on this. There's no internal checks. There's nothing. It's just like, I just remember, Whitmore. What was Whitman? She was the EPA, and then she was governor of what?
New Jersey. Chrissy Todd Whitman.
Chrissy Todd Whitman once said, I was on a program with her. She said, well, the reason why conservatives are not paying attention to climate change is because liberals are so adamant about it. What? Here's Greg Gutfeld explaining how we've got your back, even if what you're saying is actually getting people killed.
What kind of liberal leftism, and it's not like Joe Rogan or Dave Chappelle or Ricky Gervais are like leaving. It's like there are people that have poisoned that party with this anti-free speech wokeism. The long-term strategy that we, people on the right, decide to share the risk and defend those that may not like us. Like, I will defend Bill Maher. I'm sure he hates Fox. I don't know, Rogan, he may hate Fox, but whatever. But they will at some point see the value in the mission of sharing the risk, and they'll realize that that's all we've got. I mean, the fact is, his side isn't doing it. He's the least political person that you might ever see at this kind of level of fame. That's because he's all over the map and you can't pin him down.
Sorry, like the least political person you know at that level of celebrity isn't talking to Douglas Murray about the threats Islam has to Western civilization in Europe like multiple times. That's just ridiculous.
This is, right. I mean, this is part of the hide the ball, right? Like,
oh, yeah.
It's not political to question whether or not we're kowtowing too much to the fact that, there are certain races that just don't have high IQs because of their genetics. That's not political at all. But this whole thing, understand what he's saying. Share the risk. What's the risk here he's talking about? The risk is that the misinformation this guy is putting out may end up killing people. Well, we'll all share a little bit of that risk by getting behind you. But in fact, you're not reporting on that. You're also diminishing the risk that there's going to be any sort of accountability associated with it. Share the risk. We're just backing you up, man, because you're also carrying water for stuff that we believe.
And in that clip, Rogan goes on to talk about the whole crux of it, where he's saying, thank you, Fox News, for defending me, was that I don't support universal basic income anymore because my buddy's a bar owner and he was unable to get people to get back to work because they received COVID relief.
Yeah,
that's as expressly political of a statement as it gets. But just one sec, Matt. We said this yesterday. That's a hallmark of a right-winger online influencer trying to convert you. They pretend things that are apolitical, that are expressly political, trans rights, Islamophobia, racism, etc., race science, and that as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's saying basically Joe's basically someone who agrees with you on the cultural stuff but disagrees on the fundamental economic stuff, which is, good for him to draw that line so clearly.
And we should say, look, there are worker shortages all across the board, and there's going to have to be some type of fundamental shift in our society. I mean, like I say, I've spoken to in the past week, a mechanic told me they can't find anybody to work in the shop. This guy who delivers gravel said that every quarry he goes to, they offer him a job to drive because they can't find drivers. Of course, we abandoned drivers, and there was a huge narrative all these things are going to be self-driving trucks, so don't go into the trucking industry. There's a lot of people who are not going into trades for whatever reason because and if it's hard for you to find people as a bar back, maybe what we have is a situation is that there has been just so much exploitation of people that this is really what we are seeing now is when wealth inequality catches up. Because many, many people have made so much money off of other people's productivity. And those people who are providing that productivity have said, you know what? It's just not worth it to me. The concept, think about the esteem in which the concept of the Laffer curve is held by these right-wingers. If you start taxing people at the rates that were taxed in the 50s and 60s, and remember, in the 50s and 60s, every dollar over what would be equivalent today to $3 million would be taxed at 90%. That $3 million and $1 that you made, that $1 would be taxed 90 cents would go to the government. And the Laffer curve, which has been the orthodoxy for the right wing in this country, has been if you raise taxes on wealthy people, they're just going to stop working. And it's going to be your fault that they stop working. But when it comes to essentially saying like, hey, people aren't coming in because they're not making enough money. It's not worth it to them to come in and work this job and make that money. Because the money at the end of the day is just not enough for them. All of a sudden, there's a moral hazard problem here. And the fact is that this country got used to the idea of we're going to exploit workers. The money is all going to go to one section of the people, of the population, a very narrow, small section. And the rest of the people are going to have to suck it. You're not just working for you, you're working for them. And it's not just you're working for them, it's how much of your work is going to them as opposed to you. That has always been a fluid dynamic that changes. And wealth inequality is an example of this dynamic being tilted so far in one direction that it's not worth it for people to work under these circumstances.
Yeah, and like, what did we do with all that capital that was stolen by capital owners from the workers? Is we built a bunch of McMansions, and now Elon and Jeff Bezos can race about who goes to the moon first.
Oh yeah, and private equity bought up all the houses.
Bezos like, I don't know what to do with my money. I may have to go to Mars or something. I mean, should we play the rest of this clip? Yeah, go ahead.
Political person that you might ever see at this kind of level of fame. That's because he's all over the map and you can't pin him down. That used to be a good thing. Not being able to pin someone down on their ideology used to be a virtue. But now people on his side are saying, no, I need you to agree on every single thing or you're out. That's why you're seeing people like Dave Rubin and others leaving the left, because the left is basically kicking them out.
Katie?
Hilarious. Every single thing. We just listed a variety of things. There was a lot of people on the left who, when Rogan was making these questionable statements, and I understand it goes deeper than, probably people know in terms of his right-wing proclivities, but they were giving him the benefit of the doubt for a long period of time. And then he was promoting snake oil for COVID, denying vaccinations, exclusively only basically having on right-wing guests who wouldn't challenge him. I know there was a lot of that before, but it was less publicized. And all of the things that we listed before, it was not one thing that caused the left to turn on Rogan. It was everything.
When was the left not? I mean, all that entire narrative is absolutely garbage. Absolutely garbage. Yeah. And you know what? Nobody cared about what Dave Rubin was saying, other than he was pretending to be of the left. The problem is he was pretending to express liberal left ideas and was actually funneling people into right-wing think tanks. Yeah. I'm for limited government and also single payer.
Yeah.
Excuse me? I'm for being completely dry and also taking a shower.
It would be much stronger for their argument if they didn't have to go Dave Chappelle, Joe Rogan, Bill Maher, and then Dave Rubin.
Right.
No. Okay, yeah. What a movement.
And I got news for you. Bill Maher was never there, and neither was Rogan.
Bill Maher was saying in 1999, like, it was good that we went to Vietnam because we needed to show the world communists a lesson, and we needed to do it somewhere. We might as well have done it in Vietnam.
Wow.
Oh, geez. All right, it's 12:17. All right, so, folks, I want to address this thing on Wednesday.